Mainstream medicine is the single most successful marketing funnel in the history of the world. We're so carefully controlled that everybody is terrified of going outside of that box.
We have an entire society designed to make us hate ourselves.
We're swimming in a social media ocean of infertile six-packs. So we've been sold a picture of human health that is anything but. It's a low energy crisis. They're constantly selling you things that you fundamentally don't have enough energy to go out and get. That is the playbook of modern medicine, of big pharma.
We're past some genetic problem here. We've got something else going on.
You have to respect the fuel source of the human body, which is food. We don't run on plastic. We don't run on pesticides. We don't run on BPA.
It's like we're suffering from Stockholm Syndrome. We've been kidnapped by a life that it's not ours. And yet we're afraid to walk out the door. There's sunshine right out there. That is the life you can have. You really need to find the things that make you positive, feel positive about the world that you're in. If it's not, start throwing out everything you can find that is taking that away from you.
100%. That's it. This is not a matter of politics. This is a matter of the continuation of the human species.
Justin Nault, I want to thank you for joining us on the MAHA podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
It's good having you here. There's so much I want to ask you about, but for anyone, if somehow they've missed, the work that you're up to in health, I think you're a great voice for MAHA, for this idea of making America healthy again. But sort of from your perspective, how would you go about taking a person and saying, let me make you healthier? Like, what is your approach towards health if you were to sort of give me the elevator pitch?
Sure. Elevator pitch. First of all, I have to help people see that they're far more trapped by the current system than they realize. It's like a what's water is situation. It's just like they've always been in this. They think about food a certain way. They think about medicine a certain way. They think about health a certain way. So I first have to help them realize the system that they're trapped in and how it's impacting them, and then help them escape it. And the primary way that I do this is by teaching people that food is not bad for them, right? So like as a nutritional therapist, most of my job is helping people rewrite the false belief that food makes them fat and that food is bad for their health. And we can dive into that because that's only been a thing for the last 75 years. Mm-hmm. Over the last 75 years, we've all been programmed and conditioned to believe that too much food makes us fat. And then I'm here to help people look at cliche terms like food is medicine. Yeah. And understand what that actually means. Like food is the primary, most important thing that runs everything about your life. Not just whether you're fat or thin, but your mental health, your mood, how much money you can make, how much physical activity you can do, how you treat your kids, how you treat your spouse. All of it is tied to food. If you don't get that right, the rest of it is going to be very challenging. So that's the core thing. Step one is helping people understand the importance of food.
I remember George Clooney, I think he'd done a movie, I believe it was called Syrian or something, where he put on a ton of weight. And then the next movie, he was back to being ripped and trim and looking great. And someone said, how'd you do it? How'd you drop all that weight that fast? I was like, it's this brilliant new diet. I just ate less and worked out more. But sort of to the opposite of what you're saying, right? That's what we've all been told is that, in order to work out, I just got to eat less, lower my calorie intake, just crush it at the gym. But, what I think is interesting about what you're saying is that's not actually the road. Certainly maybe you lose some weight, but is it the road to health?
That's the big question, right? It's like the eat less, move more movement is usually driven by physique, right? It's like if you don't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger in the 70s, today in 2025, like you'll have trouble selling a $17 fitness plan on Instagram. Like if you don't look just super jacked and chiseled. And we've fed people a lie that is what health looks like.
Yeah.
So what we actually have today is like two sides of a pendulum, an extreme pendulum swing. On one side is what would be considered a quite unnatural physical body, which is obesity, type 2 diabetes, chronic disease, all this stuff.
Yeah.
Low energy, actually, ironically.
Yeah.
And they're taking advice from the other side of the pendulum, which is like super shredded, ultra giant muscles, six-pack abs. And the term that I use it for today is like we're swimming in a social media ocean of infertile six-packs. So it's like, yes, you can starve yourself. You can do intermittent fasting. You can do intense workouts. You can do all this stuff and get super ripped. And you can pretend that that's health, but it isn't. There's a reason why most of the biggest influencers today that are known for their physiques, that are super jacked and shredded, most of them are bald. They don't understand that male pattern baldness is a state of hypothyroid, low energy.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them are supplementing TRT. Most of them are injecting peptides, right? So we've been sold a picture of human health that is anything but. I actually used to do nutrition for professional MMA fighters.
Yeah.
Some of the least healthy people on earth.
I've known a lot of them, and when I started talking about health, especially around the vaccine issue, it was a very unique group to like wake up faster than a lot of others. But they admitted it. Like, I don't feel healthy.
Yeah.
They eat crappy food. They're, like for them, they count carbs and things, and like, oh, I'll take this Coca-Cola. It'll give me energy. I'll burn it here.
Yeah.
But I was like, but what is that doing inside of your body? And it's interesting. Because I was super skinny growing up. I was like one of those kids that I could not put on weight, so I could eat like a horse, did lots of sports, rock climbing. I remember like one arm pull-ups, like one of the deal until I hit about 40. Then all of a sudden I was eating like I couldn't gain weight. And suddenly I'm just like sitting in a job, at CBS at my desk all the time. And it was like, oh my God, I wish I could have put on this weight when I was trying to like lift. Instead I would just get skinnier and thinner. But I remember like talking to a friend of mine once I was in my 40s and in Hollywood where everybody works out.
For sure.
I mean, I find it funny that, in Hollywood, even like the geeky guy is totally ripped, right? Like actor means spend 5 to 6 hours a day at the gym.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like
for sure.
Your number one job, I guess, is just be absolutely ripped. But I remember talking to my buddy who he just looked gorgeous. I was like, how do you really get the ripped abs? Like, he's like, oh no, it's not the sit-ups, dude. You got to starve yourself.
Yeah.
Like you got to burn that fat out around the muscle. You can see it's right there. He's like, you got abs. You just can't see them because you're not starving yourself to death, and then talking to actors like, oh yeah, I have to starve for that last month before and you're like, well then exactly to your point, that's the image. It's sort of like what we've done to women, right? Mm-hmm. We create an image of what you're supposed to look like, but it's not healthy. And the question I keep asking is, in this longevity space, how long are these people actually going to live?
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm not buying it. My verdict is out until I see one of you guys cross 100 years old, because you're all screaming, I'm going to live forever. I don't think so. You're gray, your eyesight, now you're wearing glasses. Like you look ripped, but is that going to give you the ultimate life?
Yeah. At what cost? Right. Like
yeah.
The basic human function is reproduction. And a lot of these people can't do it.
Yeah. Infertility rates are all-time low in this country.
Yeah. I have something in my programs called Clovis Babies. My company's called Clovis, where I help clients.
Uh-huh.
And Clovis Babies is when a woman comes to me who's had at least one failed attempt at IVF. They come into my program. Usually, first I'm getting rid of all the toxins. We can talk about all the metabolic toxins.
Yeah.
But I'm generally doubling their food intake, literally. You're going to eat twice as many calories. 6 months later, 8 months later, 9 months later, whatever, they conceive naturally.
Yeah.
And then they send me a picture of their pregnant belly and they're crying and they're like, how did this happen? It's a low energy crisis. And we're teaching people to be in a low energy crisis. And I'm thinking about actors and actresses, or I was in the music industry for 15 years, which is how I came up, and with tremendous body dysmorphia, right? And I've talked to so many people, actors, musicians. I was talking to a professional model once who was telling me about a female, and she was saying like the model diet is cigarettes, caffeine, and cocaine. It's the 3 C's.
Sure.
I talked to another model who said they used to eat cotton balls so that they wouldn't feel so hungry. They just wanted their belly to feel full.
Right.
And then they get this tiny little like Twiggy, right? That look that was so popular in the 90s.
Yeah.
And that's sold to us as the picture of human health. It's really crazy. And like my own journey of that, I'm 38 years old today. I still struggle with some amount of body dysmorphia because I was a fat kid growing up. In the 90s, right? The politically incorrect term was I was a fat kid and I got picked on for it.
Yeah.
So by age 15, I'm like, Muscle and Fitness magazine becomes my Bible. I'm lifting weights 2 hours a day. I'm running on a treadmill. Then I get in the music industry. So now I'm in Nashville playing 300 shows a year. I had a reality TV show on ABC. So you take like a body dysmorphic, insecure teenager who's now a grown up, and I'm literally under stage lights like all the time.
Yeah.
So I did what you're talking about with actors and actresses. I just punished myself. It was like absolute physical punishment, everything you can imagine, from martial arts to CrossFit 2-a-days to powerlifting, everything. And my health just falling apart the whole time. Like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And it wasn't until my late 20s, and this is really how my work came to be today, was it was all through the lens of aesthetics and body image, which I think is true for most people.
Did you feel like when you were doing it, though, that you were like somehow representing, because you seem like a guy that's dedicated to inspiring people.
Yeah.
So was in that, like, I'm crushing, I'm killing myself here, but I'm giving a good representation. Was that part of it to
100%.
look good, to make people think it was possible?
Yeah. I mean, I always say that the hardest thing that I ever did was learn self-love. And that was my journey over the last 12 years. So in my early to mid 20s, when I'm crushing all these gigs and my YouTube's doing well, I have a TV show, I'm lifting weights, I'm like coaching my friends how to lift weights, how to do CrossFit. I was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and like, I did not know that I was harming myself.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like 18 years old, 21 years old, 24 years old, things seemed great. I was always a little chubbier than I wanted to be. I was like, I couldn't get the super lean, shredded abs no matter how hard I worked. I just couldn't figure it out. And by my late 20s, as the music industry started to catch up with me, the horrible lifestyle that is that, and all these punishing workouts catching up with me, I was desperate. I was like, I don't feel well. Something is going on here. I started to hate playing gigs. I was just like in a very negative headspace. And I literally Googled, what is the perfect human diet? And that's what kicked all this off. There was a documentary film called In Search of the Perfect Human Diet by CJ Hunt. Was my first introduction to paleo. CJ is now a good friend of mine. He's amazing. And I did my first paleo reset, which is just a whole foods diet. If it exists in nature, you eat it. Yeah. I started melting body fat. And I was like almost furious. I'm like, this is too easy. Like, how did nobody tell me about this? Because I was an if it fits your macros guy, right? I'm eating like Subway sandwiches and I drink a Coca-Cola as long as it fit within my macros. Right. You know? So I find the paleo diet and I became obsessed. And I was doing pretty well in the music industry at this point. Like, I owned a couple houses and I only played at night. So my days were my own. And I started studying like biology, biochemistry. I became a nutritional therapist as kind of a hobby. I was like, I'm just going to focus on food. And that's what brings me to today. It's actually very kind of synchronistic that I'm here today based on how I got into this with this whole MAHA movement. Because around that time, my niece, Savannah, was born terminally disabled. So she was having over 300 seizures a day. And within the first 7 days of life was put immediately into the pediatric ICU, hooked up to all these
she started having seizures like the moment she was born? The moment she was born.
Yeah. She would do this weird, strange thing, like her arm would stiffen and her head would cock to one side and she'd kind of like stop breathing for a moment. So once my brother brought her to a doctor and a doctor witnessed this, it was like they went from that doctor's office to the hospital and basically never left. It was like the pediatric ICU for months. They ran over $1 million in testing on her, trying to figure out what this thing is. She was given less than 3 years to live. It's like, I mean, this is like a seizure every 3 minutes. It's like, This child is going to die. And what they do when a child can't eat or drink is they drill a hole in the stomach and they install a feeding tube, what's called a G tube. Yep. Now, this was my first introduction to the ketogenic diet. In a mainstream medical setting, the ketogenic diet is used to suppress seizures in epileptic infants, children, teenagers. That's what it's used for. Now it's the keto diet fad. This was 10 plus years ago, right? So like at the time, I'd never heard of this. I knew about paleo, I was learning about nutrition. And the way they do this with babies is obviously they're not eating or drinking, so they can carefully control their diet. So now they put Savannah on a ketogenic baby formula, which is called KetoCal, which is made by Danone, a big food company, a for-profit food company. So now we're talking about baby formula, which is very big in the news right now. Yeah. So I knew just enough at this point. It had all lined up perfectly where I knew just enough to kind of be a pain in the ass to doctors. Yeah. And I look at KetoCal's ingredients. It's high fat, low carb, which is technically ketogenic. All the fat is hydrogenated vegetable oils. Oof. It had cornstarch, it's soybean oil, sunflower oil, cornstarch, sugar, and then a bunch of synthetic vitamins and minerals. So like they're non-usable forms of these vitamins. They're using like folic acid instead of like you know, methyl tetrahydrofolate or whatever. So I'm looking at this and I'm like, this is toxic sludge. Like this isn't, what is this? You're putting this in the belly of a dying baby. Yeah. So I brought it to the attention of a neurologist in the hospital. And he looks at the bottle, looks at me and says, I never thought to check that.
Isn't that amazing?
I mean, that's what I call my cliche red pill matrix moment. Yeah. I was like, there's no adults in the room. Like nobody is coming to save us. This child, it does not get more fragile of a human life than a weeks old baby that's dying, can't eat or drink. And you're pumping them full of a for-profit company's baby formula that is loaded with metabolic toxins. And that's what kicked off the work that I do today. And like we're here today, now I'm hearing about Operation Stork Speed and all this stuff with baby formula.
Yeah.
You know, the FDA requires seed oils in baby formulas.
Crazy.
It's a known metabolic toxin.
Yeah.
So that was it for me, man. I went deeper down the rabbit hole of biology.
I mean, you even went as far as like making your own baby food for
I did,
right?
Yeah, I was so mad. And again, martial artist, I was a boxer, all these things. I come from a very alpha kind of toxic masculinity place. I was so mad that I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't at a place in my life where I knew how to manage my emotions or even access all my emotions. That came years later.
Yeah.
And I was so mad that I just became extremely motivated. Like you said, what I know how to do is work really hard.
Right.
So I went home, I bought food dehydrators and food processors. I used my oven. I studied the most nutrient-dense paleo superfoods and started making formulas, like powdered formulas in my house. I'm taste testing them. My dad's taste testing them. And then we're like, all right, well, for Savannah, the taste doesn't really matter. It's in a G-tube. We just need to get the nutrients right.
Yeah.
And I ended up with a formula that I cleared with the neurologist at her hospital. Like, this is better than what we're currently giving her. And we were allowed to give it to her in her feeding tube. And what that led to for me was I'd fallen out of love with the music industry. It was harming my health and wellness actively. And I basically turned that kitchen formula. I worked with a food and beverage consulting company, added a bunch of collagen protein to it, and started selling it to CrossFitters as like a protein powder superfood. And that was my first entry point into e-commerce. And then I started getting on Facebook Lives and telling people, like, I read a book called Medical Nemesis that was about how gnarly the mainstream medical system is.
Yeah.
And I just started going live and answering people's questions about health and wellness. Ended up doing that for 115 weeks straight. Made content for about 9 years, and now I'm here with you today, and it's like thousands of lives transformed.
I'm curious because I've heard you tell this story. What is your brother doing? I mean, like it's what like people. It's a very sensitive space being in a hospital, and even more sensitive that it's your child is not doing well. They feel very fragile. I think we've all tried to either help if our parents, someone got the COVID vaccine, trying to coach them on, don't do that. Or it's a very hostile space and it causes a lot of problems inside the family. Is your family just wired to listen to each other? I mean, your brother's like, hey, come on in, have a conversation with my, neurologist. Yeah, go ahead. I'll just sit back and let you rip him a new asshole. I mean, is that how that went down?
That's it. My family's very tight. We're very close. Yeah. And I mean, my brother is, I have like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of before and after pictures. My brother's one of them.
Yeah.
He dropped like 45 pounds working with me and just like learning the nutrition stuff. My dad famously is, a before and after picture that we have because he's 65 years old. He's been listening to me for about 10 years now.
Yeah.
He's on 0 medications. He deadlifts 315 pounds. He spends his weekends like on a boat playing with his grandkids. He's super healthy.
Yeah.
My whole family is like this now. It really like the whole family kind of adopted all this thing as I was coming into it. And it's interesting now, my brother, because he's very excited about all this.
Yeah.
He was on the news. He was part of the reason that CBD became legal in Tennessee because they were using CBD products for seizures as like potential treatments.
Yeah.
And he wasn't allowed to use it in Tennessee. So he was on news stations and getting interviewed and like really fighting with it. He's an attorney now. And he's 100% on board. He's like, use Savannah Story to help get people healthy. Like if there is a silver lining here, this is it. And Savannah's still with us today. She's 10 years old.
Wow.
She far outlived her life expectancy. And it's a sad story to tell. And I was kind of like, tell people like, this is a gnarly story and warn them because she's 10 years old now. So she grows and she's still fed by a G-tube, but she's what's considered 100% disabled. Like she can't hold her own head up or anything. Like she requires care from a nurse every single day who's in the house taking care of her as a child. She can't speak or anything like that. It's a very sad story. She ended up with something called KCNQ2. And at the time, she was one of 96 living cases in the world.
Wow.
So unfortunately, this ketogenic diet did not work for her. And it's a pretty gnarly experience. But yeah, my whole family is like 100% on board with everything that I'm doing here.
So, one of the things is I worked with Robert Kennedy Jr. trying to, was director of communications while he was running for president. Now I watch him working hard to figure out how we're going to make America healthy again. It's one of the things that, he went into government and says, I want to stay on the outside, Bobby. I want to try and help this movement grow and get to the people, right? I think that you're going to work on regulations and things like that. But, when you think about it, right now, Bobby's being told by President Trump, I want you to prove you can reverse the chronic disease epidemic in 2 years. which in some ways an epidemic that's really skyrocketed since the mid 1980s. If you look at it somewhere around 1989 and early 90s, we just hit this chronic disease rocket ship. Lots of toxins you can look at there. But one of the things that, I think about, and as we try to think about what would be the math on that, if I was going to test everyone in America at where they're at in health and their chronic disease, and we want to reverse that. I mean, you're not going to show that they all got healthy in 2 years, but you have to show that we're curbing it, that we're moving in a better direction. And one of the issues is that if you go to a MAHA event, like we did the MAHA ball, like packed, beautiful people, if we do a fundraiser or we do an outdoor event, you see a lot of people that look like you, like everyone's healthy. They're all like fit, working out. That's not going to move the needle.
Yeah.
Right. The needle is these chronically ill people, the people that are obese, that are getting, terrible information, probably never really learned how to eat correctly, from the beginning. And yet when I talk to podcasters, I talk to health, gurus or influencers, I mean, really the group of people that are coming to guys like you are already on that journey, right? Like I'll get, and they're kind of like in the spiritual world, they call it like, spiritual butterflies. Like they go from this guru, oh, I'm bored with that, and move on, and that health influencer, and now let me check out Justin, see where he's at. How often do you actually interact with someone that just can't afford organic food? Is, like, I don't know what to do. I know I'm dying here, over 300 pounds or whatever. Do you have interactions with people like that?
For me, it's nearly 100% of the time.
Really?
Yeah. I would say this. I mean, it was interesting for me because I didn't do any paid traffic. I didn't know anything about marketing when I was a musician. My bachelor's degree is in songwriting. And the next thing I know, I own these e-commerce brands and I have a Facebook group, and the Facebook group just started growing. And I had all these people coming to me, and just organically, it's women aged about 35 to 55. They're sedentary. They don't have a fitness background. I have one client named Shannon who famously lost over 100 pounds with me while homeschooling 8 children.
Wow.
She never stepped foot in a gym one single time. So I'm not out here trying to help people improve their bench press.
Right.
And it's weird. I have the pendulum swing. I work with those people like Shannon, and then I work with like professional MMA fighters or super high, like driven entrepreneurs that are running big companies and they have to deal with stress levels, right? So I'm doing both ends of the spectrum and I fall somewhere in the middle. What I'm trying to do is help people find that middle path. And what upsets me more than anything about America is all the people you're talking about are completely left behind. Not only are they left behind, they are emotionally abused. They're being gaslit every single day. And this is where I take a lot of arrows online because I disagree with mainstream and I disagree with all the alternative people as well, because everyone is still obsessed with calorie deficits. Everyone across the board, if you are overweight, you are told you need to be in a calorie deficit or you cannot lose weight. That is fundamentally not true. And if we talk about body recomposition of body fat versus lean muscle mass and recomping, then I have an old podcast called How Weight Loss Ruined Everything. Everyone became so hyper-focused with weight loss that if somebody is 250 pounds, nobody thinks that person is malnourished. They don't have enough food. They don't have enough nutrients.
Right.
We need to heal their body by giving them more of what they need, not restricting and causing that energy crisis to be even worse. So this is what happened starting 75 years ago, right? With the onslaught of ultra-processed foods in the American diet.
Yeah.
Yes, people may be eating, on average today, it's about 2,400 calories. But if all of those calories are not only empty calories because they don't have nutrients, they're known metabolic toxins, you have a situation where the entire energy production system of the human body is destroyed. So these people, anyone who comes to me overweight, it's like, I'm tired all the time. My hair is falling out. I feel cold even in the summertime. I have no libido. I'm infertile. Does that sound like a high energy problem?
Right.
All of these people are living in a low energy state. They already don't have enough available energy. And the entirety of diet and fitness culture says you need to eat less calories.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. They say you need to eat less calories and you need to exercise more. So you're living in a low energy state. Your health is falling apart.
Yeah.
You don't have enough energy. And then I come along and say, eat less, move more.
Yeah.
Which are two things that fundamentally mean less energy available in the body. And I was recently interviewed for the Make America Healthy Again documentaries.
Yeah.
And the thing that I went over with them is what you're talking about. All of these people, the butterflies that are going from thing to thing to thing, they're trying to find purpose in life. They're trying to find what really drives them, what I would call self-actualization, which if we go to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that's the peak of the pyramid. There's like 1% of the population that is focused on what is my purpose? What am I meant to do here in this life? Their focus is becoming the very best version of themselves. I put myself in that category. Meanwhile, the rest of the population is at step 1 of the pyramid. The base of the pyramid is physiological needs. This is food, water, air. Why is that at the base of the pyramid? Well, it should kind of be relabeled energy. Those things are required to create energy in the body. The energy currency of the human body is ATP. The entire reason for human metabolism is to take food and turn it into energy, ATP. So until that physiological base of the pyramid is handled, you're not going to be able to participate in society. So in the MAHA documentary, they asked me, they said, what do you say to the people that aren't interested in this because they think it's a political movement? Their politics differ from RFK and Trump, and they're like, I want no part of that MAHA thing.
Yeah.
What do you say to them? And I said, this is not a matter of politics. This is a matter of the continuation of the human species. Because this low energy crisis is not only responsible for the global infertility epidemic, we also have set up a society and culture that is constantly gaslighting and emotionally abusing people. Because if you're overweight, you don't have enough energy, and everything, social media, pop culture, TV, movies, is selling you things that are higher up the pyramid. So the second level of the pyramid is safety. This is like your food, your shelter. Do you have enough money to exist? Do you feel safe? From there, you have social, which is like love and belonging. From there, you have self-esteem, like self-confidence, self-love, which is why I teach that in all my programs. And then the top of the pyramid is self-actualization, becoming the best version of yourself. You are constantly being told in society, if you can't afford these sneakers, you're a loser. If you're not like this Miami entrepreneur pulling up in a Lambo with a Rolex, you're just a loser. You need to learn how to make more money. You need to have 6-pack abs. You need to have better friends, a hotter girlfriend, whatever it is. They're constantly selling you things that you fundamentally don't have enough energy to go out and get.
Right.
So you end up with a nation of people that is depressed, anxious, unhappy. They feel like they can't participate. They feel like they're being left behind. And then they become very, very angry and very, very hateful. So a lot of like the social media divide we see today is all the people who haven't sorted out the physiology, which is 90% of the population has clinical metabolic dysfunction.
Yeah.
You are living in a constant state of fight or flight. You are pretty much getting a signal from your physiology at all times that you're in an emergency crisis and you're like on death's doorstep.
Yeah.
But then all of society is telling you, David Goggins style, get up, go to the gym, stop being a loser, make something of yourself, blah, blah, blah. And they're literally like desperately looking at the screen.
Makes absolutely no sense. It might as well be complete Chinese.
Exactly.
You know, I've watched this in different parts of like my own life. Like as a filmmaker early on in Hollywood, I could not figure out how to raise money. Felt like I had all the talent. I could out edit most people, shoot, camera, all of it. But how do you raise money? And I remember I had a friend I grew up with that just could never have a girlfriend. You know, that wasn't a problem of mine. But for him, and we'd go out, we'd go to bars, like, no, dude, you can't, like, you know, you got to be a little bit tougher. They like danger, you know, like you try and coach him, you know what I mean? And I remember like, and I'd watch everybody try to coach our friend. Like we all loved him, you know, really wanted to have a relationship, but just was everybody's friend. I mean, would be surrounded by girls.
Yeah.
But just no one's going home with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I remember one day I thought like, I watched myself coach it, you know, I watched everyone else try to coach this friend of mine. And I once thought, you know, it's like there's this road in Beverly Hills where it's just like everyone's going to the party, but there's this really long hedge that's like 10 feet high. You're like, you just go down and it's the second gate, you know, through, you know. And this person's driving and it's just a hedge. There's no gate. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I have been up and down this road. I see the beach ball up on the other side. I hear all the cheering. I hear the splashing in the swimming pool, but there is no, and that's the way I felt like raising money, like having success in my career. No, like I'd read The Secret, you know, read The Secret. It's like, oh, there's definitely a road. You just turn right here and self-actualization. And you're like, I've tried all this crap. It's not like I cannot find this doorway through this this impenetrable hedge.
Yeah.
And then you start getting angry. I started getting angry at every self-help book and every, you know, and I swore if I ever like, you know, ended up being successful, I'd never write one of those books.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, it's just like one of those douchebag books. Like, hey, I figured, you know what you got to do? You got to do exactly what I did.
Yeah.
You know, I'm actually currently working on a book.
No, of course. Yeah. You got to share it with the world now. Now you understand the game.
But you're like, it's just going to be for most people.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder that. Like, I did have these amazing, miraculous experiences in my life that you want to share. Like this moment where my life turned around, but would it translate? I mean, I think what's interesting about the work that you're doing is I think you're going to a place that most people aren't. You're not just screaming, dude, you got to just go down the road one more time. I'm telling you, or I count it out. It's 480 steps. You're like, no. Let me meet you where you're at.
Yes.
Because you're blind at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, when I watch the work that you're doing, you're recognizing something that I could say it all day. I could show you the map. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
How are you meeting people where they're at? I mean, because they're so terrified, right? I mean, we're so terrified. We're so frustrated. We've been to so many people that, like, if you said, have gaslit us.
Yeah.
You know, they'll show me the before and afters of patients they've had. Like, you know,
we've done this with thousands of people. What's wrong with you?
Right.
You know? That hedge analogy, like, you could write a book just about that. That's the best way to describe it I've ever heard, honestly. It's like literally people just feel like I'm being completely left out of this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm being told it's my fault.
Yeah.
I don't have enough willpower. I don't have enough discipline. I'm gluttonous. I'm lazy. I'm cheating. I don't know how to track my food, all this stuff, right? So people first come to me. It's always, and this is what I love to point out with people about how ATP works in the brain, right? So in obese individuals, they're generating 20 to 30% less ATP than non-obese individuals. People with major depressive disorder have 20% less ATP in the frontal lobe of their brains. And then being obese carries a 55% higher risk of depression. So, I mean, they are so far behind. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
And everyone's just telling them to work harder and get their shit together.
Go out and jog.
Exactly.
Go running. Like like you were saying, like they have no energy right now.
They can barely get out of bed, dude.
Right.
And then you have like the Goggins that go run 10 miles, you know, or whatever. So I actually all of my programs start with self-love. And it really kind of trips people up, freaks people out, and it speaks to where we are as a society. Because I'll have people come into the program, every single person gets the same thing called daily mirror work. They are standing in a mirror, looking themselves in the eyes and saying, I love you 10 times out loud. That's where I start. And I get so much pushback of like, well, I thought I was here to lose weight. And I'm like, trust me. I have to get you to speak the language of self-love, self-confidence, self-worth, believing that you're worthy of health. Because all of society has told you you're not worthy. You're one of the losers. You're one of the people with no discipline. You're one of those, one of those
and that's
people.
huge, dude. I mean, I mean, what's amazing in the sort of the fat shaming world is now we've said, no, be fat. Fat's beautiful. Instead of like, actually love yourself. Like
Yes.
not try to justify.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference. Like we're not trying to justify ourselves. That's different than loving ourselves.
Well, and this is really important too, the justification piece, right? I was trying to figure out why my audience was 85% women that were nothing like me. So we polled them. I had access to thousands of people. We polled them. They're like, you're the first person who told me this is not my fault. You are the first alpha male I've ever come across who feels like you're fighting on my behalf, not telling me that I'm weak and undisciplined and all this stuff.
Right.
Right. So that's really the thing is, I mean, these people are so beaten down. They do not know what to do. They do not have the motivation. They do not have the willpower. And they're just constantly being reminded that they're like one of the losers.
Yeah.
That's really what they're being told, you know? So we have to get to a place of them understanding, like if somebody comes to me and they have a belief of like, yeah, I just need to diet, you know, eat less, move more. Once I lose 30 pounds, then I'll love myself.
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know this now that you can attract money.
Yeah.
Right? You have to become the type of person who can hold the energy of money to be able to make money in that way that The Secret and all these books talk about.
Yeah.
So I try to help people see, no, like a light switch. You make the decision starting today, you are a healthy person. You may be 300 pounds and type 2 diabetic, but starting right now, you are a healthy person. That's your identity, which means that starting today, every decision you make through the lens of I am a healthy person. And by default, all the decisions you make will change. The way you live your life will change. And over time, your body has no choice but to manifest health. You will become 30 pounds lighter. So weight loss is a consequence of becoming a healthy person. You don't become a healthy person by losing weight. And then,
I mean, what you're doing is you're putting someone inside their body, right?
Yes.
They're trying to be detached as though it's a separate vehicle. And I'm going to ride this shitty vehicle till I get to the place where it's become the Ferrari I'm dreaming of, and then I'll love myself. But you're not driving that car. You're watching that car. You're staring at it. You need to get inside of that. And it's a bit like, when friends of mine will say, I got this great screenplay idea, right? Because I came from Hollywood, and I need 6 months off. I need 6 months off to write. I got to figure out how to get if I could just take a 6-month vacation. It's like, you'll never write when you get 6 months off. If your shitty waiter job that you have right now that you loathe isn't making you go home and write, which is what I did. Right. I went home and wrote, almost got no sleep. I couldn't, as I was pursuing the things that I wanted, it was my crappy, the work that I was like, no, I'm something else. I'm a writer. And I started doing that more, being more in that body. Mm-hmm. And then it transformed. I think we all have this idea that we have like this, it's really like a mythological idea of ourselves, or almost like an avatar that we create, mm-hmm. that we're trying to grow to become that avatar, and we never get there.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? Because we're not actually driving the car. We're not inside of it.
No, there is no end goal. It's a never-ending goalpost.
Right.
This game of life, right? When we talk about the top of the pyramid, self-actualization, my favorite analogy for this is like a kind of mythical story. You have a guy who sees a rainbow. He's like, I'm going to get to the pot of gold at the end of that rainbow. He grabs a backpack and sets out walks for the next 30 years, trying to get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
And all along the way, he looks down on the ground. Whoa, there's a piece of gold. Picks it up, puts it in his backpack. Keeps walking a couple miles. Oh, there's another piece of gold. Picks it up, puts it in his backpack. Years later, he gets to the pot of gold and it's empty. And he's like, well, I've been sold a lie. What is this? I thought this was it. I finally got to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah.
And then it hits him. Oh, wait. Takes his backpack off, dumps it out, and all the gold he picked up on the journey fills up that pot of gold.
Right.
He's a rich person now, a wealthy man, whatever, because of all those little changes he made along the way. And this is the reason why when people win the lottery, they're usually bankrupt within 18 months, because they just get hit with this massive onslaught of energy that they don't know how to hold. They don't have the daily actions, the daily identity of a wealthy person, someone who can hold wealth. They almost have to throw it away. They don't know what to do with it. So it's like that guy that bought 8 golf courses for all of his brothers or whatever. Yeah. And these cost a lot of money to maintain. He goes bankrupt. So that's really what we're dealing with. We have to make an identity shift in people so that the weight loss journey is a personal development journey. And it's you just becoming a person who holds higher standards for yourself. That's it. And unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, I try to help people see most people who are very physically unwell because of the low energy crisis. And again, I'm not saying that this is their fault, but it is their responsibility. If you are stuck in rush hour traffic for 2 hours every day to go to a job that you absolutely hate, where you're not respected and people treat you poorly, and then 2 hours drive home and you're miserable and your boss was a jerk to you and you have a toxic relationship at home and everything is a mess, then when you pull into the Wendy's drive-thru on the way home, that first bite of Frosty, if that chocolate Frosty bite is the best part of your day, it's going to be very difficult for me to change your life.
Yeah.
So it's not just calories in, calories out. It's like you are probably going to have to quit that job that is sucking your soul.
Right.
You're probably going to have to reassess the romantic relationship at home that is leading you to have low self-worth because this person doesn't respect you or treat you poorly or whatever. This is a holistic lifestyle issue. And it's actually a holistic societal issue. Right? 1 in 6 Americans are either on an antidepressant or antipsychotic.
No, it's insane. We are so frustrated, have so much anxiety. We're so sick. And you're right. It's, how many friends of mine, are in marriages. Some of them are great. I have an amazing marriage. And I don't even know how to have a conversation with friends who the ball and chain and they talk about it. And I watch it for years and years. Why can't you find happiness? And if not, then maybe you guys got to move on. Someone's got to have an honest conversation here.
Yeah, of course.
But that's just relationship. You're right. You hate your job. You don't, and people will say to me, thank you. Cause I walked away from my job at CBS to do an investigation, make it back, documentary about vaccines where it was blowing my mind. And I was like, I am going to screw up my television career, but I can't leave this story alone. Yeah. And, but people say, thank you for your courage and thank you for your sacrifice. I was like, sacrifice. And I think that this is part of it, right? Is that we're led to believe that people that live in a passionate space or live their truth or really, that they're sacrificing some part of their life, that you're making. I was like, you would, for most people, I was like, I wish you could hop in my body for a day and see the amount of miracles that I see every day around me. And I'm experiencing these miracles, and you're taught that it's a sacrifice. You're making the sacrifice. You're at a job you hate. People say to me, my job almost forced me to get the COVID vaccine. I was like, no, your job almost gave you a reason to leave.
Exactly. Yes.
And people don't see it that way.
No.
That how many of us, it's like we're suffering from Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Like we literally live as though we're captives. We've been kidnapped by a life that it's not ours.
Yeah.
And yet we're afraid to walk out the door. And I feel like that's sort of what you're doing is like, there's a door, there's sunshine right out there. That is the life you can have.
100%. I mean, if you think about it, right, we've all seen a fly in our house, and you will watch a fly just bash itself against a window pane. Bang, 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 bang. 6 inches to the right, there's an open door, open window, whatever. They don't know. They just constantly try this thing. It's like the definition of insanity, right? Like doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So it is like, fundamentally, you have to help people see it through a different lens if they're ever going to get to this place where what we're talking about right now might sound like Chinese to them, or the wall analogy of the party. You can see the beach ball bouncing or whatever. So that's really it. It's like you have to understand that this is an identity issue, And again, when we go to the toxic relationships and all this stuff, I went into high school 5'2", 7 inches shorter than I am right now, and almost 200 pounds. If we had a field trip where there was a lake or a pool involved, I'm staying home sick. I'm not taking my shirt off in front of my classmates to get made fun of, right? Like I was literally taught that I was less than. I had low self-worth because I'm watching Arnold Schwarzenegger and thinking that's what a man is. Yeah. I look like this. So of course, if your entire life you've been programmed to believe that you are fat or you're not beautiful or you're ugly or whatever, then when you're 22 years old and you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, you're like, well, this is just my lot in life because I don't look like the woman in the magazines. So I can't get a man who's going to take care of me or treat me well. Or same with men today. We have this, the kind of like red pill movement or incels, whatever you want to call it. These men are really angry at women because they feel like they can't participate in the dating pool or whatever. It's like you talked about. You end up really angry when you're reading another book like The Secret. Yeah. And you're like, fuck this thing. I hate this. I'm so mad. And you end up hating the whole system. Yeah. So again, it's like if we don't get this sorted out and help people have enough energy to participate, like the future of the species is at stake.
Well, you just said something interesting. This lot in life. Yeah. Which, I think when you meet someone usually that's obese, morbidly obese. Oh, I have a thyroid issue, or I was born. My whole family has this issue, and at first. Yeah, but then when you start seeing 50, 60% of the country are moving into the space of obese, we're past some genetic problem here. We've got something else going on. Mm-hmm. And that victim mentality, right, I think is a huge part of what is wrong. It's what I think is wrong with the whole woke culture, not to call anything out, but it's all about victimness. Like, I'm not just, even from now I'm white. I was born white, male, everything, I'm a victim of the fact that I'm not allowed to have a voice now, or I'm gay, I'm overweight, I'm Catholic. It's like all these things. It's like society is trying to isolate us so that we figure out all these victim identities that make us so that we're our own little problem that no one can understand. How are you able to address that? Because it's not easy. You could go in and, like you said, I need you to love yourself. Mm-hmm. We have an entire society designed to make us hate ourselves. Yes. And that's what I think it is. I don't, I think I was telling you I did Hair the musical, as when I was younger, and got the Broadway touring company. And one of the things, and there's like Black is Beautiful, like this 60s idea, and it was like really, it doesn't feel like that's the case anymore. It's like, no, I'm oppressed. We look at our race as being an oppressive factor. Everything's against me. We can't heal if we actually believe our lot is that the world is against us. Can we?
No. Not at all. And this actually speaks to a much deeper problem. Like when we look at things like the body positivity movement, so many people like to make fun of the body positivity movement and just be like, oh, they're just accepting type 2 diabetes and this is a terrible message and all that stuff. It's like, no, they've all tried. They've counted calories. They've worked out. They've tried. The only thing they have left to do It's just, this is my lot in life. I'm going to try to love myself right now
Right.
and say that I'm beautiful. This all comes from the illusion of authority. This takes me all the way back, man. It's like when you think you're sitting in homeroom, most of us came up in public school,
Yeah.
and you're like, raise your hand, like, I have to go to the bathroom. The one dictator at the front of the room can say, no, hold it. And you're programmed from the time you're a kid to ignore your own body's instincts because someone who knows better than you or has authority over you has said no. Not only that, but if you break that rule and you say, no, I really need to go pee, I'm going right now, and you disobey that authority, then there's punishment. You can get put in detention. They can put you in a room and isolate you from people.
Yeah.
Right? So the whole tribe has been convinced since the introduction of allopathic medicine with Rockefeller and the Flexner report and all this stuff, that there is an authority who knows more about your health and wellness than you do. And it doesn't matter how you feel, doesn't matter what anecdotal evidence you bring them, they're going to say, no, this is the thing. I have a PhD behind my name or an MD behind my name.
Yeah.
You listen to me. You need this pill. You need to count calories. You need to exercise more or whatever. And that's what I'm like fundamentally trying to fight against. So all of the educational pieces I do within my programs are teaching people this, that the illusion of authority is what got us here. And I love to help people see this with a very modern day social media trend. You familiar with like Herbalife?
Yeah.
Or any multi-level marketing scheme or what's called pyramid scheme? We're all aware of these. If like Joe or Susan down the street are like, come to my house on Friday, we're gonna have a dinner party and I'm gonna show you a video and I got an opportunity for you, right? That is the playbook of modern medicine, of big pharma. What happened with Rockefeller when he had 90%, he owned 90% of petroleum companies, he had a monopoly on petroleum, said, how do we turn this into an ingestible and convince people that they need it? So millions and millions and millions of dollars went into shutting down things like naturopathy, and this is where the term quack came from and all that stuff. Shutting all that down, all the intuition, all the ancient knowledge that we had of food as medicine. And what we've ended up with is a nation where the highest levels of academia and the highest levels of mainstream medicine are disease experts. They are not health experts. Most medical schools don't even have a nutrition requirement.
Right.
You know, so what you end up with is mainstream medicine is the single most successful marketing funnel in the history of the world. So much so that it's not just an Herbalife training video. They have institutions, universities, research laboratories where they put so much money into convincing people that this authority now says I'm a PhD. This authority now says I'm an MD. So when I'm on social media, all a PhD has to do is point at me and say, I am a PhD. He's not. This guy's a quack.
Right.
It doesn't matter if I have thousands of testimonials and transformation
That's the
stories.
first, if you read articles and I'm in, they'll say Del Bigtree has no medical background, said,
100%.
you know, and I always say, you're right, I am just a journalist, which is why it's so shocking that I got it, all the things right during COVID and all the doctors you listened to didn't.
Yeah.
You know, I agree. They went to med school. They should have understood that that was a rushed vaccine, that this virus didn't affect children. There's like a lot of things that an MD should have recognized that didn't. I don't know why that's the case. That just happens to be the world we live in. But before we get into authority and your clear irreverence towards it, which I do want to get into, I want to just sort of finish this point, because there'll be people that watch this podcast, I hope, that, you know, maybe we'll hopefully go to your website, figure it out. But how do you actually get someone to start loving themselves, to start undoing this programming of self-hatred and victimhood? And what is there like something someone could do today to just say, just start doing this every day? And I'm telling you will start finding yourself. You'll find yourself more inside of that vehicle and know how to drive it.
Yeah. It's one of the most impactful things that I do, and one of the things that took me the longest to figure out in my kind of 10-year journey of helping people with this. The way that I word it is the fastest way to build self-worth and self-love is to keep commitments to self. And the problem that we have here is when you're paying attention to what everyone else is doing in comparison culture, this is where kind of social memes or jokes like New Year's resolutions come into play, right? It's, let's say you've been sedentary your whole life, and this whole last year you've been sedentary and eating fast food every day or whatever. And then you magically decide, like, come January 1st, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. I'm going to lift weights. I'm going to do cardio. I'm going to eat 1,200 calories a day. I'm going to restrict carbohydrates. 5 days in, you're miserable. You're like, I hate this. And you quit.
Yeah.
You have now fulfilled a built-in self-sabotage behavioral pattern that is your ego staying where it's comfortable, which is I'm not good enough. Nothing works for me. Getting healthy sucks. It doesn't feel good. People literally think that getting healthy is a miserable experience.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like
Yeah.
things that are actually better for your health, that make your health better, should only feel good.
Yeah.
But now we get into comparison culture. There may be somebody who comes to me, 300 pounds and type 2 diabetic. And after we do the daily mirror work, saying I love you 10 times.
So what is that? What is that? What is the daily mirror work?
Daily mirror work is a series of statements that I have people do standing in a mirror. It starts with, and you're saying this out loud alone in a bathroom, and you just look yourself in the eyes and you say, I love you 10 times. You try to mean it as much as you can. Even if you're faking it in the beginning, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we move into 5 statements of, I'm proud of you for. You have to come up with 5 different things. I'm proud of you for doing daily mirror work. I'm proud of you for watching Justin's video or listening to this podcast. Then you get into 5, I forgive you fors. 5 things you're ready to let go of that you forgive yourself for. I forgive you for becoming 300 pounds. I forgive you for XYZ, right?
Do the every day, should they change it up, or can it be a repetitive?
They should try to.
Some forgivenesses?
They should try to. The same way when I have people do gratitude journaling, trying to come up with different things every day, because you're flexing the muscle, right? Everyone's obsessed with bicep curls. I'm obsessed with self-love curls.
Yeah.
Right? You need to get the reps of self-love in.
Mm-hmm.
And the last part of that is the most critically important. We've kind of set the stage. We get into commitments. 5 statements of, I commit to you that. So I commit to you that XYZ. And this is the hardest part for people because of comparison culture, is you have to meet yourself where you are. It's your responsibility to meet yourself where you are and not set yourself up for failure. You have to set the bar so low that you know you are going to succeed.
Yeah.
You have to set yourself up for success. Now, for some people, that might literally be, I commit to you that every day for the next 3 days, I'm going to start my day with a glass of water.
Yeah.
That's it. You're not doing CrossFit. You're not running 10 miles. You're not doing things that are actually bad for you in your current state of health anyway. You meet yourself where you are. And day 3, I tell people to have a little celebration. You drink that 3rd glass of water and you put your arms up like you're Rocky Balboa and you're like, I did it.
Yeah.
3 days. I drank that glass of water. What? Oh, and then you get back in the mirror. I commit to you that every day for the next 7 days, I'm going to start my day with a glass of water. And if you can make these tiny little changes over the course of a year, your entire life is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could stay on the up-down roller coaster of just self-sabotage, setting yourself up for failure, and retelling the story that you're not good enough, you're weak, you have no discipline. If you meet yourself where you are, it's I think of life as a video game, right? So your little like life meter or whatever it is, we have a little self-love meter. And we're increasing that self-love meter and growing it and growing it and growing it. And we're creating momentum by keeping commitments to self. It is the most critical thing.
Yeah.
If you are constantly breaking commitments to yourself, you're never going to get here.
I think you make a really good point. Something that I've talked to a lot of people about when I go and speak, and people will line up and say, "What can I do to make the world a better place?" I was thinking of building a new hospital system. Like I was like, "Are you a doctor?" Well, no. I was like, well, then I'm not sure that's in your wheelhouse, and I don't really have the time to figure out what your thing is. But what I'll say to people is the mistake we make is we set these gigantic goals. We've been told, and the secret, and a lot of these books do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like do the big board on the wall with the Ferrari and the mansion and write yourself the $1 million check, which I by the way, I remember back in Hollywood, a group of friends, we were all just starving actors or whatever. We did the whole thing, and I was like, I am not doing this. I am not like going to sign $1 million check to myself because I just don't believe it. I don't believe,
Yeah.
And so I remember like I came up with the mantra, like my life is a seed that I'm going to plant. I'm going to water it every day, and someday it'll be an oak tree. It was just like, where can I meet myself? But when I started making the film Vaxxed, which sort of transformed, I was walking away from a working career and saying, I just really believe this story needs to be told. And people will say to me, now that journey, really about 8 years ago, has this incredible inflection point right now where I helped Robert Kennedy Jr., someone that carries this idea of the world and health that I do, is now in the most powerful health position in the world. Well, how did you achieve that? Well, I didn't achieve it by 8 years ago saying, I got to find someone just like myself and put ourselves in the most powerful health position in the world.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to get out of bed.
No.
It would have been so daunting. And instead, what I've said to people is there's something that happened when I decided to make Vaxxed. First of all, it was and I want to get into this with you a little bit, but it was a moment where I just really felt like my life had designed me for that moment, where I was sitting in a chair, I looked at this documentary, and suddenly I realized I had an ability to make this be something that no one else could, that I felt like my life had designed me for that moment. But, as a producer, I could see, if you're a producer or a director, in Hollywood, you get successful because you avoid pitfalls that would have cost millions of dollars. Like, oh, you saw the mistake ahead of time. So you're a fixer. You're always ahead of it. Whereas with Vax, once I started taking that journey, people were like, how did you have the vision? Dude, like, I didn't have any vision, actually. I would say that my life transformed the moment I let go of long-term ideas and really address the day, like how many next right steps can I make in a day? What is being brought to me right now? And let me just be as present as I can be with it. And I started seeing myself as a vessel more than an actuator. Like, I'm going to be a vessel for me, it was God, but, divine intelligence or some collective unconscious understanding, whatever you want to call it. But I just want to be available because I think there's a greater intelligence that can guide me here. And I'm going to respond to that. And it's almost like I went blind.
Yeah.
Like, I lost all long-term vision, but had really super clear short-term vision. Every day for the last 8 years, for the most part, it's been really clear what I need to do in this hour and what I'm going to do in the next hour. And it just sort of kept laying out. I always like that. It's like the Raiders of the Lost Ark or something, where you step off the cliff into like cloudy space and you just know there's going to be a plank arrives.
Yeah.
Like, to walk in that faith changed my life. And then I get credit for, how did you see all this? I didn't.
Yeah.
In fact, it was my letting go of knowing how this all ended that gave me more power and focus in the moment. Is that sort of what, it sounds like what you're saying to people is just get up, make statements about love, and like you said, I agree with you. I make really low bar. I like small goals that I need to achieve today that just made me a better person today than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
The ultimate, who's my ultimate self? I'm going to leave that floating out there. All I want is the better self from yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all the stuff that you're sharing, the analogies and everything, and the way you tell your story is amazing, because we're like perfectly aligned on that.
Yeah.
I remember I actually had the beginnings of a vision when I was going through this situation with Savannah. And I said to my dad, I was like, I would really love to disrupt the baby formula industry. That would be amazing. And then I realized that the FDA regulates anything that's for infants 12 months or younger and this whole thing. And I was like, well, that seems near impossible. So I let it go. It's like, I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And all I thought at that time was, I had realized the music industry was toxic and it was not good for me. I was not enjoying it anymore. I was like, how can I replace my current income online? How can I do that passively? So I started an e-commerce company, and that was a health and wellness based e-commerce company that then led to me starting a Facebook group and having these customers come in and all this stuff. But that whole little vision I had of the baby formula thing went completely out the window. And then it hit me like the other day when I realized I was coming here to be with you.
Yeah.
And I saw Operation Stork Speed. And I was like, wait a second.
We need to talk. I was just yesterday saying, I think we should be looking at a baby formula. I mean, like, and I think the baby formula should say, it should say, MAHA recommends breastfeeding. But if you can't, this is the next best thing. Like,
Absolutely.
and how hard would it be to design that? You know what I mean? Without the, Coca-Cola load of like 10 scoops of sugar and, like you said, seed oils and heavy metals. I mean, what they're finding in this stuff is just
I want to
shocking.
I want to bookmark that too, because this is really important. I don't want to like lose track of what we're talking about, but I really want to get into.
Are we on a track?
Yeah, I know, right? the illusion of authority, like the whole scientific community, and baby formula is the best example of this, is so fundamentally broken.
Yes,
and we can get into that if you want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I really do think that for me, it was just. It's tiny little baby steps. I'm like, I know nothing about e-commerce. I know nothing about about marketing. It's going to be amazing to me when I sell my first bottle of protein powder, which happened on Christmas Eve in 2015. I remember the day I sold a bottle of protein powder online. I probably made $20 profit, right? And I was like, okay, I'm learning a new skill, or like what I call skill stacking.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this is going, but I'm learning new things that are going to serve me for the rest of my life. I'm picking up the gold on the path on the way to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow.
That learning thing is something I'm trying to tell my kids too. Like, I'm passionate about learning. In fact, I'm more passionate now about learning than I was when I was in school. Like, I loathed learning. I felt like it was forced on me or something. Yeah. But now, like, I love taking on new things. And I feel like I watch so many people avoid the things they don't know how to do, and then just keep trying to like figure out, can I get paid more doing exactly what I've always been doing? It's like, why don't you retool? Why don't you expand? Why don't you, it's so hard for people to actually like step into their weak space. I'm trying to say to my son who's 16, look, that part of your tennis game looks great. Why are you working on your serve? Like, my serve sucks. Like that. Why are you avoiding the part that needs the work? Right. You should love that more than anything. Like, here's a new journey. Here's where I can improve myself. Here's where I can expand. And, why are we so reticent at stepping into the harder parts of our life and getting trapped in repetition?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that, I mean, if there's a hell and that people that like are miserable in their lives, it's repetition, isn't it? Is it just straight up boredom?
For sure. Yeah. Well, and it's programmed in us. I think almost all kids hate school, right? Like in high school, I had a 2.6 GPA and I got arrested. And then like I
wasn't far behind you.
Yeah. And then I go to Berklee College of Music where I'm like thrilled I got in there, and I'm studying songwriting, and I have a 3.86 GPA, and I'm like crushing it because it's something that I care about. But again, this goes back to the illusion of authority. Like, you are told, when we're kids, we hear all this, like, you can be the president, you can be whatever you want to be. It's like, I'm never going to compete with LeBron James. That's not going to happen. That's not a path I'm going to go down, So we're told stories that we can do whatever we want. And then as we grow up, once we get to middle school, high school, whatever, it's like, well, you're not great at math. Maybe we're going to give you an aptitude test, and you're probably not going to be an accountant, but maybe you'll be a teacher, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
We're told what to do. And then we're all told that at a very young age, when our prefrontal cortex is not even fully developed, we have to choose what our career is. And then we have to go to more illusion of authority, a place of higher education that takes all of our money and puts us in debt and all these things. Then we're supposed to choose a career and stick with it for 35 years and put money in a 401k and all these things, right? Like, we're so carefully controlled that everybody is terrified of going outside of that box. And this is like when people ask me what I do, am I a nutritional therapist? Yes. But I literally think of myself as an architect of freedom. How can I help you escape all of this bullshit? Because it's the food system, it's the medical system, it's 401ks, it's the 9-to-5 job that's sucking your soul, whatever. Like, escape all that. And at any point in time, you can literally just opt out. Like, you don't have to fight some big fight. You don't have to become the leader of a movement. You don't have to do all this stuff. It's just in your personal life. You can just say, I opt out. Like, for me, seed oils, they might as well not exist in my reality. They don't. I just don't consume them. I don't put any mental bandwidth into like, am I going to eat Chick-fil-A today?
Right.
I'm not someone who goes
to deny myself Chick-fil-A. Like driving by, I'm trying resisting.
100%, right? So like, I might drive by when I see it in my awareness, but I'm never going to step foot in that building. I'm never going to get $1 of my money. It might as well not exist in my reality.
Right.
So that's it. We are reality creation machines. Like, I fundament on a quantum level. It's a little out there. We'll get a little secret with it, right?
Yeah.
I think of my entire reality as a reflexive holosphere that is reacting to my internal state by the millisecond. This is Justin talking to Justin through a mirror named Dell.
Yeah.
That's what this whole thing is, right?
Yeah.
So when people are out here with all these external circumstances and these prison cells, and the reason why, well, my life would be so much better if my boss wasn't such a dick.
Right.
Just leave. It's like, you're signing up for this thing over and over and over. And I know people have responsibilities, they have financial responsibilities and all those things, but you have to at least be willing to look, or in my situation, how can I replace my income as a musician doing something that doesn't suck my soul and damage my health?
Right.
Did I quit the music industry immediately? No, I didn't. I started my e-commerce company.
Right.
Started getting some
a lot
passive
of
income
people do
coming
that
in.
too, right? Like, they literally just throw it all away.
They burn the boats.
They burn their boats.
Yeah.
And then it's just like, why didn't you give yourself a step off place? Why don't you see, just like slow it down?
Yeah.
Again, you're trying to like jump a giant Grand Canyon to your future self. There's a million little steps are going to be there. And if you think of a million steps, you're never going to do them because that feels like too much too.
It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming.
I have to do all that to get to this place 10 years from now. Like, why are you thinking 10 years
working out, right? Like, oh my God, how many workouts do I have to do before I finally look like, Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Exactly. I remember, I think it was Zig Ziglar way back when. I think he was telling, he was very overweight. And I think his story was like, I just went to the mailbox and I got the mail. And then the next day, I walked to my neighbor's mailbox. And then the next day, I walked to 2 houses down mailbox.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, he's lost like 100 pounds. He's just making these tiny little baby steps. It's a critically important lesson for people to learn. But again, and in people's defense, 100% of social media and pop culture is reminding them how shit they are. Like,
Right.
you don't have a six-pack abs. You don't drive a Lambo. You're like,
Right.
I got Alex Hormozy over here. Like, I'm building my companies, and he's like, my company's worth 9 figures. Ugh. I could very easily look at that and compare myself and decide I'm a failure.
Yeah.
You know?
I always question all those people telling me how to make money. It's like, why are you wasting your time selling me your book if you made so much money?
I call it coaches coaching coaches on how to coach. Like, what are we doing, man?
How much does like a, I want to get into your perspective of authority because I think it's very interesting. And I don't know if you grew up in church or religious or any of that, but I think it, as you said, we have a principal, we have a teacher in school, but most churches, most mosques, most synagogues, you pick the religion. My problem with religion is you are a failure in your life.
Mm-hmm.
You need a prophet, that you can look up to. And by the way, I'm the only one that understands what the prophet was here to tell you, which is what every church seems to do to me. I mean, how many Christian churches does someone go home and actually go, what did Jesus, I'm going to read this myself.
Yeah.
I'm going to read what Jesus said. I'm going to read what the Torah says. I think there's so much we're literally, everything is, I don't have enough knowledge base to figure this out myself. I go to church to listen to my minister. I listen to my rabbi. I go to my doctor to have my doctor tell me. I go to college to have the professor tell me. And we've built this idea that all the information that you need is in someone else's hands. How do you think that? I always ask myself this: if there was no book, if there was no, like if someone was 300 pounds, is there anything they would find on their own? Is there a way for them to have information if they can't read it, if they can't look at it, like they were misinformed? Is there something natural inside of us that could actually get us on a path?
Yeah, and I think that thing existed before all of the societal programming turned them into a person who would become 300 pounds. Like, I think we're inherently born with this. Mm-hmm. I really do. And I think this is like, to answer your, like, I was not raised super religious. I was brought up Catholic and did first communion and all that. At 13 years old, my parents split. My dad became a very evangelical born again Christian, started like preaching and all this stuff. Next thing I know, like, I'm at Bible camp. I knew nothing about this Jesus guy, and everyone around me is like raising their hands, and I'm like, what is happening here? And what I really learned through that, which followed me into my 20s, like I partied like a rock star, literally. Right? Yeah. And all I felt was tremendous shame, judgment of self, like, oh my God, I'm doing all the things that they told me not to do, right? Like, but and what I found is that a lot of these things, this is the reason why people are so terrified to make mistakes, man. It's like there's so much shame and judgment and guilt hurled on us that, like, if you do not fall in line and do exactly what you're told, again, it's like if you don't do what you're told in school, you get in trouble. Yeah. Like if you go to the bathroom when someone told you can't, you're going to get detention for that or whatever. Right. So people are so afraid to make mistakes. And I see this in my one-on-one coaching every single day, man. People are paralyzed. They can't make a decision because everyone has seen this in health and wellness. Like, you go to social night with the boys or the girls or whatever, and all of a sudden you order a burger with no bun when all your friends are overweight and everyone's eating a burger and eating the fries and drinking beer, or you're like, I'm not drinking tonight. Yeah. What you're doing is you're shining a spotlight on all of their decisions. It makes them very uncomfortable and they attack you. Oh, you want another diet? What is it this time? Well, last time worked so well, right? Like, and this is what I call crabs in a bucket. So I really do believe that, like an alcoholic has to remove themselves from the bar life, like you have to remove yourself from any of the toxic systems. And this could be like your actual blood relatives or your closest friends or whatever. Like, there may be a period of time where you have to isolate yourself so you can work on the things that you know to be true. But this comes back to your internal authority. So authority is not just big pharma, big food, the school teacher. It's your brother. It's your mother-in-law telling you how to raise your kids. It's your husband saying, I know you're on a diet, honey, but like, I'm bringing home Domino's. I don't care what you're doing.
Well, and my father's a minister, but he also we were raised with a concept of faith and healing in some ways. And he would see a cancer patient, in a hospital room that's like, stage 4, about to die, surrounded by family, sort of to the story you told earlier. And he would say to the family, can you picture this family member not dying of cancer? Like, are you capable of envisioning what they look like when they were healthy? And like, well, I mean, what do you mean? He's like, well, because if you can, I need you to leave the room. I need everyone in this room
Yeah.
that is staring and just cannot get the image of this sickness in front of you. I need you out of the room, because he or she is never going to be able to get to their own picture and idea of health when you are holding them in this perspective, and would kick families out. Someone would get upset. And then you usually would then start talking to the person. What is it in your life that you would change if you could have that life? And usually my wife's been having an affair. I know about it. Like, they're dying inside, and those people are all in the room.
Yeah.
Right? They're all in the room, like all the things that, and you're punishing yourself. So you're going to wipe yourself off this planet. You're going to hurt yourself instead of clear the room.
Yeah.
And I think it's, since we started biblically, Jesus said, leave the dead to bury the dead. Like, if you really want the transformation that, I'm bringing you, then you can't drag your family along. You can't go back and save them. You've got to let them go. I think it's a huge part. During COVID, so many people were like, my family's getting the vaccine or whatever, whatever it was. I was like, let it go. Love them.
Yeah.
Love them, but move on. Move on to the people that want to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Go to the people that are like opening up their minds now. There's a whole community. You have a family here, and it's not the one you were born into. It's the one you're growing into.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This happens with me all the time, because like social media is kind of a cesspool of online hate. Like you talked about, it's like Dell, who has no medical credentials, right? I've been dealing with that for 9 years.
Yeah.
And one of the most common questions that I get from people is, how do you deal with all this online hate? Like, why don't you, when someone stitches one of your videos and talks about what a quack you are, why don't you respond? And it's kind of like a turn the other cheek scenario, but not really. I'm not intending for it to be that. I'm just like, why would I put my bandwidth into somebody who is trying to harm me negatively versus putting my bandwidth into somebody who is desperate and looking for help and wants my help, and they're open-minded?
Yeah.
And the reason why I handle hate so well, like I always say, it's like water off a duck, is because I love those people, man.
Yeah.
Like, they are serving their purpose in the world. It's iron sharpening iron. They're making me sharpen my message to make sure I'm fully on point on what I'm saying, and all my things are fact checked and all that stuff. They're serving a purpose, and I love them unconditionally.
Yeah.
Like, truly. And it's like, if some influencer who like specializes in increasing the bench press of some 22-year-old kid, I'm like, cool, he's helping people hit their goals as well. I have no reason to attack that person, and I fundamentally see that person as me. It is a mirror reflection of me. So if I go attacking that person and putting all of my energy into hatred and negativity and fighting, that's not unconditional love. And I'm limited by the amount that I can unconditionally love you based on the amount that I can unconditionally love myself.
True.
Do I love myself if I don't get up and get my ass to the gym? Yes, totally. If I'm tired one day and I don't feel well and I know the gym is bad for me, I might sleep in.
And
you know
start
what I'm saying?
the next day out of the mirror saying, I forgive myself for not working out yesterday.
Whatever it is.
Today I celebrate the fact that I'm gonna, I did just work out, right?
100%.
Like, just start new. I mean, so much of it, and you talk about like social media online. I have an 11-year-old daughter. I still won't let her near a phone. I'm terrified of social media around a young girl, and my son's, 16. But so much of our communication, I don't know if it's around the world, I haven't traveled enough, but certainly in America, again, it's victim conversation. Like, I think people should look at the conversations you have. We think the only thing that makes us interesting is what went wrong in our day yesterday, right? How much of our conversations, oh my God, so-and-so screwed me, or I this fell apart, or I wrecked my car, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like, you so rarely have someone, like, we don't even feel inspired to say the good things that are happening to us, right?
Yeah.
And to your point, because we don't want to be like taking the bun off when everyone else that's overweight is eating buns. We don't want to make them feel bad. Like, I don't want to talk about the great day that I had, because I know you're you're going through a divorce right now. It's rough. And so we actually like meet them, that we bring ourselves down to that space.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, it took me years to figure this out. I remember when I first started my e-commerce company and it was doing pretty well. At the time, I was still like drinking and partying with friends, and I was in a romantic relationship at that time. And my girlfriend came up to me and was like, you can't talk about your businesses anymore when we're out. Like, it's like people are feeling really uncomfortable. And I remember that was, like you said, what's the moment of like my boss is being mean to me, or they're trying to make me get a vaccine. Like, this is my time to step out. This is my time to leave. And it was a huge gift that she gave me. And I was like, oh, I am surrounded by the wrong people.
Right.
And because all of her friends, these people we hang out with, are like complaining how they don't have any money while buying a $12 shot of tequila at the bar, and all whining about how they don't have any money and they hate their job and everyone at their job is stupid, and if they would just listen to them, everything would be mad. And I'm like, go start your own business then. Well, I'm not going to do that. It's like, I just love to complain. So I'm telling you, like, you have to get yourself. Everything is an environmental input. And this is one of the most critical things I try to help people see with their health, because this is true. I always teach my private clients know this. How you do something is how you do everything. When our body is storing fat, we get mad at it. There is something wrong with me. My body is broken. It's doing something I don't want it to do. This stupid body, the car is broken, like you said.
Yeah.
They don't understand the car is functioning, the machine is functioning exactly as it's supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is storing fat. It's lowering its metabolic rate. Its hair's falling out. It's decreasing fertility as a way to protect you. It's trying to keep you alive because you've placed it in an incredibly unnatural environment. The human body is a miracle adaptation machine. It will adapt to whatever input you give it.
Mm-hmm.
But we look at it as it's broken. The same is true of our societal inputs. If I decide to stay in that place where I can't talk about my successes, I can't talk about my business, I can't share my wins, I'm going to stop having wins because I'm not going to put my focus there. My focus becomes on the negative.
Right.
So the way that I help people see this with their human body, let's say I have a MacBook computer. I have my computer, and everybody knows my computer runs on code.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as the code is good, that computer is going to do exactly what it's designed to do. Now, every day, 3 times per day, I start injecting viruses and malware and dysfunctional code into the operating system of that machine. Now my computer starts to malfunction and I get mad at the computer. This computer's a piece of shit. My computer's broken. Then I bring in a technician and the technician says, man, you know what? I think we need to replace the screen. I think we need to replace the motherboard. We need to replace the chips. We need to replace the keyboard, the electrical inputs, anything besides the code, the viruses. And then I'm like, hey, actually, we're pumping viruses and malware into this machine 3 times a day, every day.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe we should stop that? And he goes, no, that has nothing to do with it. We need to fix the keyboard. We need to fix the screen. And not only that, but I'm like, no, I think the viruses are a problem. Well, fixing the virus is not covered by insurance.
Yeah.
Right? Fixing the keyboard is covered by insurance. That's what we're doing with health and wellness. And it's what we're doing in our social circles as well, is the inputs that we're getting are determining the way that the machine functions.
I have a very extreme example of that. I was working on The Doctors, and we would do these house shows, sort of like Big Brother. It's a wild experience to produce those where you have cameras in the room, and you literally a lot of it's just trying to get them all to argue with each other because it makes good television. But there was a guy on this one, and it was all about getting healthy or something. And he had just overcome cancer, had been through chemo, almost died. And he'd drop outside and smoke a cigarette like every couple hours, like he needed smoke breaks. And it wasn't really my business because I'm just supposed to be like following with cancer. But what's with the smoking? I mean, you just literally almost just died of cancer. It's like, oh yeah, but that was leukemia, not lung cancer. He's like, this doesn't have anything to do with leukemia. And I was like, oh my God. And sure enough, I found out like 2 years later or something, died of cancer.
Hey, of course.
And it's just, but that level of disconnect, like doctors say that this causes lung cancer, leukemia is a different thing. Like, no, you are poisoning your body.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah. And this is the situation that we run into when we do dig into like the medical, like the way that medicine has taught this is that food becomes the enemy. Food is bad for us. Food makes us fat, rather than toxins and poison make us fat. So the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, which kind of takes me full circle to this idea of calorie restriction being good for humans. If you are in a calorie deficit, by definition, you are metabolizing your own tissue. It's called catabolism. You're breaking down your own healthy tissue if you are in a calorie deficit. And we teach people that is the way to health.
Yeah, all the intermittent fasting, starve yourself till noon, 1 o'clock.
Exactly.
How's that for a person that doesn't have energy to begin with?
It's horrible.
What is that doing? What are we telling our bodies when we do that?
That there's energy scarcity in the environment. So again, environmental input, right? If we go back to the example I gave of infertility, if you have a woman who's eating 1,100 calories a day when like her maintenance calories are probably 2,500 calories a day, right? Just to not gain weight or lose weight, just for the function of her human body. And she's starving herself at 1,100 calories a day. And then she's going to a doctor and she's like, we've been trying for 6 months and we just can't get pregnant. I don't know what's going on. The doctor never says eat twice as much food. And it's actually a good thing that he doesn't say that, because if they have a standard American diet, they're going to eat twice as much poison. Right. So again, we have to separate food versus poison, right? Like if you walk into a hotel lobby and there's a bowl of fake plastic fruit, your brain looks at that and immediately says not food. We know it's not food. Right. And you also know that if your diet were made up of 100% plastic fruit, you would not only become malnourished, but you would die. Now, what has happened is the American food supply allows over 10,000 different chemical compounds. Over 1,500 of those chemical compounds are known metabolic toxins and carcinogens. So just by walking into a grocery store, if you're eating ultra-processed foods, we know that some percentage of your calorie intake is non-food items, if not metabolic toxins. So what percentage? Is it 50%, 20%, 10%? It should be zero. It should be as close to zero as possible.
Right.
And I think that all Americans can get on board that like 0% of the food supply should be toxic in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Right? But we have this situation where everything became calories in, calories out. They call it energy in, energy out, but it isn't. It's potential energy in, actual energy out. You see what I'm saying?
And so in your perspective, like I've heard this said about cancer, that a tumor is really just your body trying to protect you. It's trying to draw in all of the, to figure out how to collect all the toxins in your body that are killing you and store it in one space and hopefully try to get it out. I mean, some of your perspective is that that's what fat is doing too. It's trying to pull the toxins away from our organs. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitively proven. Part of the reason for fat storage, one, you have the emergency storage of energy because we're constantly starving ourselves and the body's like, I need to store energy for later.
Yeah.
But also because fat is hydrophobic, it can pull toxins out of the bloodstream and store it safely in fat cells.
Okay.
So that's the thing is like when you get into intermittent fasting or when people first start keto or something like that, we use these terms like the keto flu, people feel really bad.
Yeah.
A lot of that is they're forcing lipolysis, like they're forcing the body to burn fat and they're releasing toxins in the bloodstream.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, it's the body protecting you.
It would seem that part of, I mean, I know that lots of people that struggle with fat, they literally hate the fat on their body.
Yeah.
It seems like part of loving yourself would be thanking these fat cells for having protected you for the toxins you've been packing 100%. In there, right? Thank you 100%. For protecting me. Now let me stop introducing toxins into my body.
This is the self-love piece, right? So like the entirety of the weight loss industry, diet and fitness culture, is centered around something called lipolysis. Lipolysis is just the burning of fat. Mm-hmm. So it is like intermittent fasting, calorie restriction, low carb, cold plunges, saunas, running, CrossFit, everything. It's just like burn fat, burn fat, burn fat, burn fat. But the truth of the matter is the human body burns fat 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, always. There are certain tissues in the body that prefer different types of fuel. So like your heart tissue, no matter what your diet is, about 80% of the energy that your heart tissue needs is going to come from fat. It prefers burning ketones for about 80% of its energy. So if you're burning fat 100% of the time, and you're overweight, does it make more sense to focus on stressful ways to burn fat? Or do we just turn off the signal that is telling the body to store fat?
Right.
And then let the body fat take care of itself. And the signal that's causing the body to store fat is usually inflammation. And this is at the level of the citric acid cycle. We can break this down. If you activate specific inflammatory cytokines, you have things like TNF-alpha or interleukin-6, all these different things. Yeah. These are nerdy biochem terms. But if you increase inflammation, it shuts down a specific step in the citric acid cycle that basically turns the fat storage switch on, even if you're in a calorie deficit. And this is where the calories in, calories out math starts to not add up. Because you're basically saying, if you have a car and you fill that car with gasoline, and then the spark plug turns it into energy, you're basically saying calories in, calories out is saying that I can fill that gas tank with whatever I want. Gatorade, water, sugar water, gasoline, no matter what it is going to create the same amount of energy. That is simply not true.
Right.
And we know that. You have to respect the fuel source of the car, which is gasoline. You have to respect the fuel source of the human body, which is food. We don't run on plastic. We don't run on pesticides. We don't run on BPA. So you're clogging the system constantly and and this is where you get, like right now, there's a term called sarcopenic obesity, which is where someone is both clinically obese and they're dealing with low skeletal muscle mass and in some cases osteoporosis. So their muscles are disintegrating, their bones are disintegrating, and you tell them eat less food.
Or even worse, take a product like Ozempic that does exactly that too, goes after their muscle mass and their bone density. And there's so many of these biohackers that are like, yeah, just a little bit of Ozempic, straight GLP-1, like, and then let's just call it a peptide because that means it sounds a lot better.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like, and again, I'm just like, is it? I mean, we could go on for days, but let's get to longevity. Because I think you've made the point about where someone like sort of starts on a journey for health, self-love, recognize that you have toxins being stored in the fat. Stop putting those toxins in and allow your body to start acting naturally. But now this hardcore longevity thing. Like, first of all, like in the space that I'm in, because I got deep into vaccines, I started getting invited to these longevity conferences to speak. I don't need to live for 100 years. Like, I'd like to live like really well, healthy, like enjoy myself, 80 would be cool. I don't know if I hit 100, great. But like this idea that I have to be here forever doesn't appeal to me. So I always feel like I'm a bit of a charlatan at these things, because I don't really care to be 120 years old.
Sure.
And by the way, you look like shit. Like I just want to say, like, I mean, like you're pushing, 70. Don't think that's a healthy looking 70. Your veins are all popping out of your arms.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're hobbling around. You're jacked.
You're jacked, super shredded.
Right?
And the picture of health.
I'm not sure you're gonna. I'm not sure you're gonna make it. But this longevity thing, and I've talked to someone like anything it takes. Like we're hacking the system, we're biohacking, we're peptides and this and all the and to me, I'm a natural law guy.
Yeah.
Like, is there what is nature? Like, we naturally at one point used to live really long before we lived in a totally toxic environment.
Yep.
Do we need all of these tricks, all these, I mean, even like Sylvester Stallone will say he looks pretty good, I guess, on some level. No, steroids are great.
Yeah, for sure.
Peptides are great. Just a little bit of peptides, just a little microdosing, all these things. Where are you at with approaching with those things?
I mean, one, it's like biological freedom. People are free to do whatever they want. Take the pop.
Yeah.
I don't take anything, right?
Yeah.
I'm 38 years old. My testosterone's naturally about 850. I feel great all the time, right? I think I look pretty decent, know. But this goes back to, it's less about like, are these things legit, and more, are these things incredibly harmful? Right. And we don't really know. They haven't been around long enough.
Right.
And this is where I was talking to you earlier about like the fundamental flaws in science when we talk about randomized control trials and everything.
Yeah.
So you'll have someone like a David Sinclair who writes a book called Longevity, whatever. Basically, all the longevity experts across the board tend to agree on caloric restriction. So I decided to dive into this. I did a podcast years ago called Food is Not Bad for You.
Yeah.
And I started researching the studies that they were talking about of like caloric restriction extends lifespan in earthworms and fruit flies and rodents and all this stuff. So I started digging in, and I realized, one, we've only ever studied unbelievably unhealthy human beings because ultra-processed foods have been in the diet long before we understood advanced cellular biology. So we've only used our most advanced tech on a very sick population. So I started thinking about this in terms of animals, and I'm looking at like a laboratory that rodents live in, and I'm like, well, this is not, I don't know if you've heard of the cocaine experiments with rodents, where they put them in essentially like rodent Disneyland, where they have all their friends around and everything, and they don't use the cocaine.
Yeah.
You put them in a cage by themselves, they'll hit the cocaine till they die.
Right.
So environmental inputs are critically important.
Yeah.
So I decided to study rodent chow. And what happens in these rodent studies, or any of these animal studies, is they're making a synthetic version of food. This is Savannah's baby formula all over again, right? And I found a direct quote from a guy named Matthew Ritchie, who was the science director of a company called Research Diets. They were responsible for creating the rodent chow that gets shipped to all these universities and laboratories and everything that are studying rodents.
Yeah.
There's a direct quote from him where he says, rodent chow, I mean, it contains corn, wheat, soy, pesticides, it might have heavy metals, and a lot of the time, the fat source, we don't actually know where it comes from.
Wow.
So I'm looking at this and I start really digging in. I'm like, okay, we'll just use human calorie numbers to make it easy. So we have rodent A gets 2,000 calories a day. Rodent B gets 1,500 calories a day. Rodent B lives 20% longer. The headline becomes caloric restriction extends lifespan.
Right. No, just not poisoning them with
The headline should be feeding rodents less poison makes them live longer.
Right.
This is the world we live in today, man.
It is. I mean, there's a whole thing on my. I don't know if you ever interviewed or talked to Brett Weinstein, but that was one of his early discoveries: is the mice they use that they've genetically modified to be really good as lab experiments. He found actually thrive on toxins.
Exactly.
They've designed these mice so that when you give them toxic things, they live longer. And so a lot of drugs are getting approved based on these mice that are doing their bodies are the exact opposite representation of what we actually have. And so much we could get into science and medicine, but sort of finishing up here, what gives you the right or the balls or the gall to think that you can be followed, be listened to when great MDs, people have spent many more years than you at this, and textbooks are written because, I mean, I don't know why you're catching heat, because you're making perfect sense to me. But that's also because I'm not a doctor. Like, I didn't study all the science. That makes perfect sense what you're saying. But what made you think that you could get in here and have the right to tell people how to make their lives better?
I wish I knew, brother. I used to say this on a podcast all the time. I was like, it is not lost on me that you're having to learn how to get healthy by a musician from Nashville. I don't understand. I mean, I know why. I know how the system's not broken. It's from, as Brigham told you, it's designed to work this way. It is by definition. Again, the way that the science is funded and everything, it's not broken. It functions the way they want it to. What happened for me was, at some point, I had to sit with myself and just kind of look at the universe and say, I accept. Because after what I went through with Savannah, and after helping literally thousands of people get healthy, I couldn't not do it anymore.
Right.
I felt a responsibility. And there are a lot of people that talk about this like I do. And I was mentored by PhD biochemists and MDs and all these people that are close personal friends of mine that tell me I'm able to say things they're not because they're a part of that system. So once I fundamentally rejected the authority that is academia, that is mainstream medicine and all these things, and I just stopped caring what those people thought, I understood that to some degree I had a responsibility to do this because I can give the message in a straightforward way without having my license taken away or anything like that. So it was less that, again, I didn't set out to do this, man.
Yeah.
I didn't. It just grew. I went from nothing to 650,000 followers.
Did you have a vision? Was there something profound, or was it just a slow, like, I'm just being, just the next right step seems obvious and it's moving into this health space? Because it's pretty random.
It was exactly that.
You
It was
said,
super
like,
random.
Nashville singer goes and becomes, nutrition, genius, and starts transforming how we see the science around this.
Yeah. I mean, that was it. I don't know. Again, like, I didn't have a grand vision. I didn't have a grand vision of the baby formula thing or having all these companies. I own supplement companies. I own the health and wellness coaching and all these things. I had no vision of any of this. I didn't have a vision of being here on podcasts.
It's amazing, is it? Because I know a lot of people credit you with having grand vision. I mean, I was talking about the same thing for sure. For me.
Yeah.
Is there a secret sauce there? Like, drop the grand vision idea? What would be your recommendation to someone that's like, I want to transform the world?
Yeah.
Well, stop needing to transform the world is probably the first place to start.
Yeah. The understanding for me was that I can't transform the world. So all that I did fundamentally was, how can I transform myself?
Yeah.
And for me, the most profound thing I did was beginning the work of self-love. I realized that I didn't actually love myself. I loved myself if I was on stage and everybody was telling me I was amazing. I loved myself if I had money in the bank. I loved myself if I got to the gym every day. I had no self-love outside of that. My entire existence was built on what I call other esteem and no self-esteem. The world was constantly giving me external validation. And it was only once I started to break those things apart and abandon the things that I thought made me special and just find out who I actually was. My journey of self-love is what got me here, because all I'm doing is sharing what worked for me, and then other people try it. And now I have stories of me sharing what worked for me and it helping other people. And then I share their stories, and it's this kind of ripple effect. But fundamentally, all that I was doing was trying to love myself more. And to me, loving myself more meant making better food choices. It meant getting out in the sunshine and getting my bare feet in the ground, not spending 16 hours a day on a computer, not getting in social media fights with other influencers. Like, I just focused on my community, the people who love me, not being around people who won't let me talk about my successes. Like, I have a beautiful community. I moved to Austin because of community.
It's an amazing community. I agree. It's
the best
beautiful.
people are here. So once I started making all of my decisions through the lens of self-love, everything improved. And then once I started seeing other as me, well, now the extension of self-love is to just extend that out to other people. If you come to me for help, I'm going to help you. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was the entire thing was a journey of self-love that ended up ripple affecting out into society. And I try to teach that now. One of the most common things I see is what I call mommy martyrdom. We have a mom who's just like very overweight, very unhealthy, very stressed out, maybe on an SSRI or something like that. And in her mind, everyone else comes first. The kids got to go to soccer practice. They got to cook them meals while she's just grabbing a bagel out the door, and like her husband's needs come first or whatever. And I try to help them see that to a lot of people, that existence feels selfless. It is very selfish. And that's very hard for people to hear. And I give it to them straight. And I'm like, listen, you're perfect as you are. I love you, but I'm going to help you see the selfishness in this. Because it's like being on an airplane. They say, put your oxygen mask on first. Because if you pass out, you can't help anybody. So what you're doing by just letting your own self-love fall apart, you will become needless. Everyone else's needs are before your own. You're not the best partner you can be. You're not the best mom you can be. You're going to snap at people more. You're going to be a little grumpy more. You're not going to be showing up in love and energy. If you can focus on taking care of yourself first and self-love and then radiate that self-love out, right? Like my cup has to be overflowing for me to give to you. I'm not going to give to you from my cup. I got to overflow my cup first.
Yeah.
That was my entire journey as an entrepreneur and an influencer.
That's amazing. Does it work for everybody? Do you have failures or?
This is not my quote. It's from an amazing guy here in town named Jesse Elder. He says, my programs work 100% of the time for 100% of the people who apply them 100%. I have never had somebody come to me and do what I tell them to do, follow the blueprint that I give them and not get results. Doesn't happen. Now I issue I have a money back guarantee on everything. I issue refunds if people don't get the results that they want, but 100%, like they have a weekly check-in. We see what they're doing. Like if they're not getting results, they're not doing the thing. And that's okay. I mean, they're not ready for this step of their journey yet. There's maybe somebody else out there who will help them do what they're trying to do, or maybe validate their victimhood a little bit more or whatever. I do it from a place of love, but I am very matter of fact of like, we need to get you out of victimhood. You are responsible for this, So no, if people follow the program, I don't have experiences where it doesn't work.
I've seen you talk about the mirror work. Is that the hardest? Like if people fall off, what's the part that's like, you just looking at the population you work with, is there a space where the part of my program that's the hardest for the greater amount of people is it the self-love piece?
100%. Like exponentially more than that. I will have people that are like 60 days in and they've still like, they've lost a bunch of weight. They're feeling great, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll ask them like, how's the mirror work going? And they're like, I did it one time and my face got really red and I felt weird and I just never did it again. Like, I got to be honest with you, I didn't do it. Now, they're still going to get results if they're following the rest of the program. My fear is that over time, they're going to fall off.
Yeah.
They're going to fall off the wagon, as they call it. They'll do their 90-day program with me or whatever, and then they'll fall back into their old ways because they didn't flex that muscle of self-love. And it's what I call the yo-yo dieting, the up, down, the weight loss roller coaster.
Yeah.
But yeah, hands down, it's the thing I get the most resistance on, the most pushback. Is the hardest thing for people to do.
Well, I think you're doing amazing work. I think it's great tracking, how you're bringing health to people. It seems absurd that anyone would waste time. I mean, the infighting we have in any movement, it's something we have to watch in MAHA. I've dealt with it in the medical freedom space, and I've always said, look, this is just my opinion. This is your opinion. Mm-hmm. If it works for you, great. If it doesn't, find somebody else. Yeah. Find someone that motivates you. Find that thing that does get you up in the morning, that inspiration that does help you find, your best life. And I've said it about my show, The High Wire. I'll say, look, I don't want to be another news show that just depresses you and makes you think the world's coming to an end. Like I'm trying to inspire people to think you actually can make a difference in this world. But if the way I'm talking about it is making you feel anxious, or that, stop watching my show.
Totally.
You know what I mean? You really need to find the things that make you positive, feel positive about the world that you're in, that you actually do make a difference in this world, that you are a benefit to yourself and others. Mm-hmm. And everything that doesn't tell you that, if your religion isn't telling that, if your religion's making you feel like crap, change it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's it, man. Do you feel better?
Right.
That's the whole thing with the health and wellness journey.
I think that should be so many people like, was it working? Are you happy?
Yeah.
Like, do you want to get up in the morning? Are you inspired? Do you feel like life is positive? If it's not, start throwing out everything you can find that is taking that away from you.
100%. That's it.
Yeah.
It's especially in Austin, like we live you can throw a rock and hit a coach.
Yeah.
Like if you are working with someone as a coach and you're not feeling better, you're not feeling more positive, you're not seeing improvements in your life, just move on, man.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to do the thing. The same way you pick up a book and you start reading it and it sucks and it doesn't draw you in, put the book down.
Right.
Nobody said you have to finish
just because 50 people says it's the greatest book they ever read. Like, it sucks. I don't 100%. Like it. You know what I mean? Like,
but this is your internal authority, right?
I've got better at that. Like, I actually walk out of movies. It used to be I just had to stick through the end. Now I was like, I don't care. Everyone seems to be digging this. I can't stand this movie. I'm out of here.
Totally. What's the point of
I
that?
don't care how it ends.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. My fiance pointed that out to me one time. We were cheersing to something. We would like cheers with a glass of champagne, some business thing or something. And we had like 2 glasses of it, one each. And she's on like her second glass and she just dumped it in the sink. And I was like, I had this old scarcity, like, are we wasting it? And she's like, wasn't the point of this to feel good and have a celebration and cheers and take a sip? We had that experience.
Right.
Now we
get
have
drunk,
to
feel like trapped and puke in the morning?
Exactly. We have to drink this whole bottle because we're wasting it if we don't. And now the celebration turns into, I feel like shit. What are we doing? You know,
Totally.
Don't suffer through things that don't make you feel better. Don't suffer through a diet that makes you feel miserable and you feel tired and grumpy. Like, what are we doing, man? What's the point of this life?
Okay, man. Let's go design some baby food.
Bro, let's do it.
Okay.
I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you.